This is the story of a tragic and horrifying victim, a princess who became just one of millions who, during the Second World War, would meet her end inside of a Nazi gas chamber. It is a terrifying story, showing how ruthless the Nazi doctors were inside of different killing centres all over Germany. Even before the Second World War broke out, there were established places where people inside of the Reich were being taken to be slaughtered and killed. As well as the concentration camps, there were sites such as Hartheim Castle, in which thousands of people were taken to, and they were ultimately tricked into believing that they would get some form of care and treatment, but instead they would only ever leave these centres of death through the chimney from the crematoria. It was state-encouraged mass murder, and the families of these victims would be informed that their loved ones died from a heart issue. But the harrowing truth was much darker and barbaric. Princess Maria-Karoline of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha was a German princess, and she was the fourth cousin of King George VI of Britain. But she was one royal who Hitler would get his hands on, and she was horrifically killed inside of a gas chamber. Today we look at her incredibly tragic story. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, as it really does help. Princess Maria-Karoline of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha was born on the 10th of January 1899 inside of Pula, which was inside Austro-Hungary. This was actually a place where the Austro-Hungarian royal family enjoyed their holidays, and she was the second daughter of Prince August Leopold of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha and Archduchess Caroline Marie of Austria. She was also a great-granddaughter of the Emperor of Brazil, Pedro II, and as mentioned, a distant cousin of George VI, the British King. The young princess did suffer with learning difficulties, and she has also in articles been described as intellectually disabled. It's not known for certain what condition Princess Maria-Karoline had, but it could have been genetic, as two of her other siblings also had learning difficulties. She grew up inside of royal palaces, but in her teenage years, her country were involved in the First World War, and she would be around 19 years old when the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed at the end of the conflict. In 1918, the royal family moved, and as Maria-Karoline got older, her condition got much worse, and it's believed that she also contracted the deadly disease of polio. She was given nurses to care for her, and she spent most of her life confined to her rooms inside of a castle in Schladming, where the family had moved to. She continued to live with her family for many years in Hungary, as the royals held many different properties, some around the city of Budapest. Her father died in 1922, but as the power of the Nazi Party rose in Germany, Hitler threatened the whole world order inside of Europe. Hitler believed that all Germans should live together under his Reich, and he would target Austria and Hungary. Hitler himself was of course Austrian, and he would take advantage of support for the Nazis inside of the country. The Nazis assassinated the Austrian Chancellor Engelbert Dollfuss, and despite the coup failing, in 1938 the Nazis looked towards the land to take Austria once and for all, and they did this in the form of the Anschluss, a retrospective fake vote that claimed that 99% of Austrians supported Austria becoming part of the Nazi Reich. The German army moved in, and there was no opposition. The Anschluss made the lives of the royals impossible, and members of the royal families went to other parts of Europe to live a life in exile, fearing for their own safety, and this included ones who did feel threatened by the Nazis. Following the annexation of Austria, Princess Maria-Karoline, along with her mother and sister, moved to Budapest, but due to her ill health and condition, Princess Maria-Karoline was allegedly left behind because of her health, and the family decided to send her to the Salzburg Hospital in Lernen. This facility was run by nuns, and they specialised in treating patients with learning difficulties and also neurological conditions. Inside of this hospital was the medical director, Dr. Leo Wulfer, and his son was the head of the male ward inside. But Dr. Wulfer Jr. was a Nazi, and he supported the horrific eugenics policies of the Nazis, and he would target patients to be sterilised in line with the Nazi policies. He was also a virulent member of the SS, and he became the head of the local office for racial hygiene. But one of the most terrifying policies introduced was known as Action T4, and this slaughterous campaign was organised by Nazi doctors, and they sorted out and brought about the deaths of roughly 300,000 people who were offered what was known as a mercy death. But the reality was that these men, women and children were sent to special sites of killing where they were exterminated in different ways. There were facilities set up to slaughter, and these places were fitted with gas chambers where patients were tricked into going into small rooms. On the 21st of May 1941, Princess Maria-Karoline was sent on a transport of 86 people to the Niedenhart Hospital, and she was then weeks later, on the 6th of June 1941, sent to Hartheim Castle. This was one of those killing centres for physically and intellectually disabled people, and it was responsible for killing patients in Austria and also in the south of Germany. Patients often knew what was happening when they got to the site, and they would be met at the reception of the castle by nurses who told them to undress. The patients were then measured and weighed, and they also had a physical exam. This was all done to trick the victims that they were going to receive some form of care, but in reality the physicians and nurses recorded things such as gold teeth that they could then steal and take after their death, literally ripping the teeth from the corpse. Patients were numbered and photographed, but the patients were then gathered together so they could be marched into the gas chamber, which had been established at Hartheim Castle. These rooms gave the appearance of being showers, and the victims were told they were going to take a shower before being admitted and then being given a room. But as the steel door was shut behind the victims, the valve of the compressed gas canister was open, and deadly gas entered the chamber, killing all of the victims within a matter of minutes. At Hartheim Castle, the gas was administered by a person, and it was claimed by someone who worked there that once 150 persons were gassed at one time. The gas chamber was so full that the people in it could scarcely fall down, and the corpses were therefore so jammed together that we could pry them apart, only with great difficulty. As mentioned, within around 10 minutes, all of the victims inside the gas chamber were dead, and staff waited usually a few hours before ventilating the chamber, and then the dead were removed. Their gold teeth that had earlier been recorded were then ripped out of their bodies in what was known as the death room, and some did have autopsies performed. Stokers then placed the bodies on a grill in the crematoria oven. It's estimated that around 30,000 people were murdered in this manner at Hartheim Castle. It is mostly accepted that Princess Maria-Karoline was gassed on the very same day that she arrived at Hartheim Castle, with her date of death being recorded as the 6th of June 1941, and she was 42 years old when she died. She would have been subjected to the ordeal previously outlined, being forced to undress before then having a fake medical exam and then being led into the gas chamber. Her mother was informed about her death and was told that the princess had died from natural causes, but the Nazis coldly recorded her cause of death as insane - official measures. Usually the sites of killing would not give relatives a chance to recover the bodies of their loved ones, but they did offer, strangely, ashes to be sent to the family. This urn was filled with ashes of anyone who was killed at Hartheim, and not the mortal remains of specifically their loved one. These ashes were just collected from the floor of the crematoria. Princess Maria-Karoline's family received one of these urns, and it was then placed in the mausoleum of the St. Augustine Church in Coburg, being interred in a crypt with 3 church officials presiding over a very short ceremony. It's not known whether her relatives, such as her brother, Prince Rainier, and also the head of the family, Charles Edward, the Duke of Saxe-Coburg, did anything to save her and protect her. Charles Edward, the Duke, would get involved in the Nazi regime, and he was given different roles, but he did little, if anything, to save the princess And he was a Nazi sympathiser, and that's putting it lightly. Princess Maria-Karoline's story is one which is truly harrowing. At the age of 42, she was sent to a Nazi extermination and execution site, and there would be no escape. She was a princess, and due to her learning difficulties, she was left behind as her family fled the Nazis and the Reich. It's not known specifically what she suffered with, and whether her mother could not care for her herself, or whether the princess was too settled in the care facility, and that taking her away would have been too disruptive for her. But this would have saved her. Instead, inside of her facility or hospital, she was a sitting duck, and she was someone who was targeted for extermination inside of the Nazi regime. Princess Maria-Karoline was one of hundreds of thousands of people who were slaughtered during World War II for their disability, and her story is one which deserves to be remembered. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.